This is my ship. I've skippered her a good many years, sailed her over a lot of ocean. She's a good ship, but you'll find her like in any port from Baltimore to Singapore and back. What's our cargo? Well, it's anything that goes into trade. Anything that anyone wants to buy or sell anywhere in the world. And you know, people almost everywhere trade with other countries. They have to get what they want. Goods they need to people in every couldn't live as they do without world trade of places in my time. I've asked questions, and this is what they say.
Trade with the world? Well, Captain, here in Britain we depend on it, you know. After all, when we shop for a bit of meat or anything else in the way of food products, we are likely to find it comes from Denmark or Australia or South America. What's more, the stuff we work with in our factories often comes from other countries too. Yes, putting it as simply as I can, I'd say we in Europe have to trade or die.
You say it's food they need, Captain. Here in South America, we have more than enough of that. Plenty of good beef cattle and grains and other crops. But we too must trade, for we need manufactured goods. And most of these we must get from you. We may not trade to live, but we must trade to live better.
Live better? Truly, Captain, that is our great need here in the lands of Asia. We are poor by your standards. Most of us are peasants, yet we grow scarcely enough to feed our many people. As for our other needs, most of us still use the simple things we make ourselves. If we are to live better, we must have many of the products of your Western world. We need goods from your machines, and we also need the machines to make more goods for ourselves. For all this, we must trade.
Well, Captain, here in the United States, we seldom think about the need for trade, except perhaps when we're looking at British woolens, or when we're trying out a new perfume from France. Of course, we know about coffee and sugar and products like these. But what would living be like without all the other things we import? There's the bauxite we put into aluminum ware. There's the natural rubber and other raw materials and the manufactured products from abroad that we depend on for everyday living. For instance, how many people driving cars know that some 200 materials from other countries go into the making of them? Believe me, we need trade as much as anyone.
Yes, trade's an important thing to most of the world's people. Ties us together closer than we realize. For instance, he just mentioned sugar. Well, we just brought in a cargo of sugar from down the Caribbean. You know, much of the world's sugar supply comes from the West Indies. And many's the time I've seen the people at work on the great plantations, cutting the cane and hauling it into the mills. This is where the traders take it over. They ship most of it to Europe and North America. We bring it north to the ports. Now over there, they brought in another very necessary cargo. A shipment of tin all the way from the mines of Malaya. Here's where we get more than half the world's supply. If it weren't for these men of Malaya who dig the ore and wash and work it into pure tin, we'd be hard put to it for the familiar stuff that we use to cover all those tin cans. But now, come along. I'll show you something else about trade. This country exports a great many essential items, too. Right here, for instance, they're taking on a cargo of wheat. And you know, we in North America, in the Argentine, furnish a good part of the world's wheat supply. We grow most of it out on the western plains. Wheat by the millions of bushels. Yes, here's grain enough to take care of the needs of goodly numbers of the world's people. Now here they're taking on a cargo of cotton. This is one of the biggest articles in trade. And a good part of the world's supply is produced here in the United States. Not long ago, it took a lot of people working by hand to pick the cotton in these fields. But today, one man can do the job with a picking machine. After they've taken the crop to the local gin where it's cleaned of seeds, a good deal of it is shipped along to the ports, bound for Manchester and other textile centers, where they make it into cloth. You know, it takes a great many people doing a great many things to keep the world's trade moving. If we could eavesdrop on all the trading going on everywhere in the world today, it'd probably sound like this.
Singapore, November 26. Cargando hoy, President Roosevelt. 50
Une douzaine de frigidaires a été reçu.
Liverpool.
Para calot, telegrafisate tonnen para
250 ton magnesium.
experiments lias litras Conto Chase National Bank, Nueva York.
Yes, Captain, the trade of the world is a vast affair. But its principles are just the same as trade in your own hometown. In every community in the world, you have a division of labor, with different people producing different kinds of goods and exchanging them with one another. For if everyone tried to produce everything he needed, no one would have enough of anything. Now, the same principle applies to the world community, with people of different countries also producing and exchanging different kinds of goods. Certain areas contain vital raw materials, such as the tin ore, the oil, the copper ore, the cotton, the wool, the natural rubber, the manganese, and other products the world needs. There are also certain areas most suitable for particular crops, such as the bananas and the coffee, the sugar cane and the cocoa, the tea and the meats, the dairy products, and the grains and other necessary foodstuffs. This makes for specialization in the world's production. Most of the world produces various raw materials and foodstuffs, but little manufactured goods. These areas produce most of the world's manufactured goods. The people of these industrial areas have to obtain many of their foodstuffs and raw materials from the countries that produce them. Likewise, they supply manufactured goods to the people of the rest of the world. But the greatest volume of world trade is between the industrial nations themselves. These nations, producing the most, demand the highest standard of living, and thus have the greatest demand for goods. For in the world, as in our own community, the more goods we produce and exchange, the more goods we have to consume, the higher our standard of living can be.
Right. That's why I can't understand why so many people seem to be against trade. I think of it every time I see the customs inspectors checking cargo, here or at any other port. All these regulations on imports and exports, these tariff schedules, these quota systems and embargoes, all these restrictions on certain types of cargo just to keep goods out of the country. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Captain, the nations of the world working together in such international conferences as this have recently done much to lift the barriers to trade. Many nations have agreed to lower tariffs and reduce controls, while programs such as the Marshall Plan have helped many nations to restore and increase production, laying the basis for a healthier world economy. But international cooperation depends upon public opinion, and when citizens anywhere meet to talk about trade, the discussion often goes like this.
Henry, we're concerned with these editorials you've been running. These pieces on trade.
Gentlemen, I wonder whether you've really read these editorials of mine. I suppose it's natural for people to want protection against competition. But when it comes to our foreign trade, you want to remember that we sell to other nations as well as to buy from them. When people like you put on the pressure for more protection, asking for higher tariffs and other restrictions on foreign goods, then people in other countries do the same. They just don't buy our goods.
Why not? If they need our goods, they'll buy them.
Not if they can help it. For one thing, they face the problem of the balance of payments with us.
Balancing their payments. What's that?
The balance of payments. Now here. Maybe this will give you a rough idea of it. My point is simply this. In the long run, other nations pay for their goods with the goods and services they sell us. They can't do this profitably if we raise high tariffs against their goods, or if we use quota systems to limit the amount of goods we buy, or if we refuse to trade with other nations except the ones that will barter with us.
Barter? How's that?
Barter. Well, when a government barters, it makes deals directly with other governments to swap certain specific amounts of goods. Now, just about every nation in the world today is seriously hampering trade through one or another of these methods.
Well, what's the answer, Henry? Just open our doors to everybody's goods?
No, but the problem is to encourage a growing volume of trade under conditions reasonably good for the people of all nations.
And just how can we do that?
Well, look here. One necessary condition is to do away with barter and encourage a many-sided trade moving relatively freely among all nations. Let's consider a single situation. Barter is two-way trade. Now suppose a nation like Denmark is buying machinery from the United States on a strictly two-way basis. She may get dollars to buy this machinery by selling goods directly to the United States. However, this two-way trade enables her to buy only this much machinery. But suppose, on the other hand, the United States pays dollars to a country like Malaya in exchange for such products as tin. Malaya, in turn, pays some of these dollars to Britain in exchange for her manufactured goods. And Britain pays some of these dollars to Denmark in exchange for dairy products. This way, Denmark would have the money to buy much more from the United States than she could trading directly. And this has been a many-sided transaction, giving more goods and services to every one of the nations concerned.
Yes, I can see that. But what about the competition between labor with low living standards and labor with high living standards? You get into trouble there.
Well, in the short run, we might have to consider that. But in the long run, we must remember that people who produce any article efficiently have no trouble from competition. Now, this is true of highly productive workers in mass production industries, of course. But it's also true of the people who are producing types of goods that cannot be as easily produced anywhere else in the world. And it's true of workers who are producing articles requiring special skills that have not been developed in other countries.
In other words, let's raise our productivity everywhere and let the people of every nation give us the things they can produce best. That's sensible.
Yes, gentlemen, that is sensible. For wherever people produce efficiently, they are adding to the world's wealth. And whether they are weaving nylon in America or weaving rugs in India, they are producing goods useful to us all. The world is rich in its vast variety of resources and strong in its reservoir of human labor, able and willing to transform them into goods. All we need are the tools and the machines to produce, and the skills to give the world a better product. From the Australian rancher growing the wool, to the Danish farmer producing the bacon, from the worker packing beef in Argentina, to the craftsman making machine parts in Sweden, everyone in the world has his special contribution to make to the world's wealth, its supply of goods and services. And when through trade with one another we exchange the goods and services we produce, we are making better use of the world's wealth, making more goods and services available to all, satisfying more of the wants of people in industrial nations, and fulfilling more of the needs of people in less developed countries. giving us all a higher standard of living. Yes, more production and better exchange provides more goods and services to more people everywhere in the world.
And we'll see that they get it. That's what I mean about trade. The more of it there is, the better it is for you and me and everyone else. We're all in the same boat. And she sails steadiest when she's hull down and full steam ahead.